Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Cassie Mathis, a certified practitioner in orthotics and prosthetics and the owner of Baby Bear Clinic in Appleton, Wisconsin. Cassie's career journey was originally inspired by her niece's orthotic needs, and after extensive schooling and experience within the field, she decided to start her own clinic in 2020. Baby Bear Clinic specializes in cranial remolding helmets, braces for conditions like scoliosis and leg instability, and other custom pediatric orthotic needs. Cassie's approach integrates the latest technologies with a family-friendly feel to ensure the best care while reducing stress for families. When she's not at the clinic, Cassie enjoys running, playing pickleball, and cheering on her 3 sons at their sports games. We're excited to have her on to share how families can navigate pediatric orthotic care with confidence. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. We are excited to welcome Cassie Mathis to our podcast today. Welcome, Cassie.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're going to be talking all things orthotics for kids. So especially we're going to be starting out with cranial helmets, which is what you've been doing for the last few years. And I know you're adding some more opportunities into your arsenal to help kids in our area. But before we dive into everything that you excel at, we want to talk a little bit about a fun fact about you. And I'm really interested to hear this one. You had shared with us that you studied abroad in college and you were able to travel to 9 different countries. So tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so I studied abroad in college my sophomore year. There were 4 of us that all played soccer together and were friends, and there had been some older upperclassmen who had studied abroad. So it really encouraged us, like, yeah, we want to do that too. And so we studied abroad in England, and kind of the structure was you had 4 days of classes, and then you'd go to a different country every weekend for 3 days. So yeah.
That was part of your program? Like you did that? Or does it just was that on your own?
On our own. So, yep.
Okay.
So they had class, and then that was just kind of like, that was the thing. You took the train into London on, Thursday night, and you'd pick a different country, and it broadened my horizons. I mean, that's definitely one of those like life-changing moments or life-changing experiences where it broadened my horizons. I had been a super picky eater prior to that. And then I got to countries where I didn't speak their language. And so I couldn't say, hold the mayo, no pickles. And I still don't like pickles, but, had to really kind of broaden horizons on that kind of stuff, and just, the travel, and we didn't have cell phones. So that was super fun and like a very nostalgic thing to look back at, that we had to Skype each other. And if you didn't catch the train, with someone, you just had to kind of figure it out. And so it was very independence and confidence building.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, especially as a sophomore.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Did you have a favorite country that you visited where you're like, I definitely want to go back to this one specifically?
No, but I feel like weather and who you're with determined. So you'd have someone come back and be like, Paris was the best. And then you'd go there on a rainy weekend. And it was like, Paris sucked. So it was funny that those were kind of always the 2 things. It's like, who are you traveling with? Did you travel with them? And what was the weather? And those 2 things would determine what kind of experience you had. I would go back to every place I went to.
Yeah.
They were all great.
Well, that's awesome.
That's the cool thing about Europe, is that you can get to a different country within hours.
Yes.
Which is pretty cool.
And one of our most memorable times was we got to the airport and all the flights were canceled. So we went to the train station. It was like, get us, the cheapest train ticket that will be within 2 or 3 hours. And so there was 10 of us. We all just went to we went to Brighton, England, and it was just this great experience. And then we took a cruise to France, or not a cruise, like a ferry. We called it a cruise. A ferry to France, and got there, didn't have a hotel, and it was great.
Wow. So very spontaneous, just kind of figuring it out as you went. That sounds really stressful and really fun at the same time.
Yes.
Good thing you were a sophomore and you were,
for
a little
sure.
bit like not aware of the world.
Little naive. Yep.
Naive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. We're going to be talking about orthotics and prosthetics. And so I think my first question is, what's the difference? Can you just define what each of those are?
For sure. So prosthetics are going to be artificial limbs. So that is, legs, arms, any sort of artificial limb. And orthotics are any device that's supporting a limb, whether it have an instability or a deformity or a weakness. So you're supporting a limb, or there's orthotics for like your torso, so like TLSOs and things like that. So it's a supportive device.
Okay, perfect. Well, that definitely helps to set kind of the stage on the difference between them. So how did you get into this career field? Because this is really kind of unique.
It is.
And as far as I know, there's not that many in our area in Northeast Wisconsin. So how did you originally get into this career?
So my niece, Paige, shout out to Paige, she has spina bifida. And so she needed AFO braces, and AFO braces are ankle foot orthotics. So she needed little supportive braces since she was born. And so I was a junior in high school when she was born. So kind of right at that point where I was discovering, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to go to college for? What do I want to do with my life? And my sister was like, I think you should like come along to some of these appointments and check this out. And honestly, initially I was like, cool, no thanks. And so I went to school for business and did my freshman, sophomore year in college for business administration. And I had a minor in kinesiology. And I was like, all right, what am I going to do with this? And so I kind of revisited it in college and realized like, oh, this is actually really cool. It's a really nice mix of you're using your hands. You're like physically molding and manipulating plastics and metals and things like that. You're working with people, which I've found is, my favorite part of the care. And then there's also just the kind of bookwork and computer work and more of a relaxed pace. So it's a really nice balance.
Awesome. So when you kind of decided on that career path, did you know right away that you wanted to start your own business since you had some of that business background?
No.
Oh,
not at all. I was like, nope, don't want to do that. I wanted to run a clinic. I knew I wanted to have like a leadership position and wanted to run a clinic. And so I was working at a clinic in Green Bay, and I worked my way up to the manager position. And I realized, oh, this is really hard. I didn't have control over how we were doing things because it was a bigger nationwide company. And I realized like it wasn't a good fit. I was working part-time, which my upper management was awesome. They allowed me to work part-time because I had my 3 young boys. But that's really hard to manage a clinic and only be there 3 days when the rest of the clinic was there 5 days. So it was just really obvious this is not going to work. And patient care, you find out, is hard with little kids because you have a sick day. Well, you have to cancel all your patients that day. So my husband and I kind of talked through like what would be the next best step, since that was just not a great fit. So COVID hit.
Oh yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I found someone on social media, so on Instagram, who had her own cranial clinic. And I was like, how is she making this work? Like, is she inside of a children's hospital? Like, how is she making this work? And reached out to her. She sat and chatted with me, and basically was like, if you're passionate about this and you want to help people and you're willing to put in the work, I think you can make it work. Like, she gave me enough numbers to be able to run like, how many helmets do I need to be able to deliver and service to be able to keep a clinic open? And I felt like, okay, I can do this. Like, I'll give this a try. And it was also at a time where like, so I started in 2020 was when I was kind of putting everything together and started seeing patients in early 2021. We didn't know if the kids were going to be in school or not in school. And so it gave a nice ability, because I wasn't busy in the beginning, to be able to kind of see how things were going to go.
Yeah. Is that why you started with cranial helmets then? Is because of that contact you had on Instagram, or what made you go with cranial helmets first?
So cranials has always been a specialty of mine. So even in my earlier years, I actually did more prosthetic work. So I did a lot of lower extremity prosthetics, and I love that. I'm super passionate about it. But it is a lot of emotional energy. Like you're really invested in your patients, or at least I was, really invested, where you're waking up in the middle of the night like, oh, should I have done this or that? And that it was taking too much of my emotional energy with having a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. Cranial helmets, so there was some logistics to it too. So I was good at cranial helmets. I was kind of known as a specialist in the area. And it doesn't require a ton of fabrication space. So I was able to minimize the amount of equipment I needed, the amount of space I needed, and be able to keep it really honed in. And I also feel like specialized care is becoming more of a popular thing. So I knew I wanted to kind of focus that in. I'm above her now, but Dr. Kita is a dentist in the area. And we went there for our son, Max, and she had kind of inspired me in this, like, she took something that nobody wants to do, bring their kid to the dentist, and made it this kind of fun experience. And I was like, yeah, like, I think I can do that with orthotics and with cranial helmets. Like, no one wants their baby to have to wear a helmet. We understand that, but we'll hopefully make it less stressful.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully make it like maybe even a little bit enjoyable, and like it won't be that bad, and really focusing on the experience piece, because we know the babies aren't going to mind the helmets.
Yeah.
It's definitely the families that have a harder time with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like having you as someone to go to instead of going into a hospital or to, there's lots more personable, you're just more personable and you can help them a lot better.
We love making those connections.
Yeah.
And we've known you for a while. So those of you who are just listening and hearing Cassie's voice, I think you can already tell she's really fun. So she does make a really fun experience for families that are needing helmets. But before we dive into helmets, because we're actually going to talk a ton about helmets in the next episode and actually what the journey looks like if a child needs a helmet. But I'd love to focus on learning a little bit more about kind of the reasons behind helmets. So I think a lot of families are concerned about flat spots. Mm-hmm. Is that the main reason why people are coming to you, or what are some reasons people are coming to see you to get their baby's head shapes evaluated?
Yes. So flat spots are why we're using a cranial or molding helmet. And there can be a flat spot kind of straight across the back. We call that brachiocephaly. And there can also be a flat spot more on one side, and that's called plagiocephaly. And plagiocephaly is often caused, if not, I'd almost say like always, in conjunction with torticollis, which is a neck tightness. So that neck tightness is really common. It's causing the baby to look in one direction, and then just the physics of being on the back of the head, they're going to get a flat spot. So yeah, we're treating the flat spot. There are other conditions, and there are some that require surgery. We won't get into that, but we always are doing a screening to make sure that this is a positional deformity. It's something that's caused from an external force, not something going on inside the head.
Sure, and that makes sense. I even think about with my kids, I think every parent, because the baby lays on their back so much, lays on their back so much, or is in a car seat or whatever, I think every parent looks at their child's head and is like, is it getting flat? Like, it's almost like a fear of being worried about it.
Well, if they're even aware of it in the beginning. Like,
True.
My first one, I wouldn't have thought of a flat spot.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
And that is one of the big things of why helmets have become more common, is that babies are sleeping on their backs. So since the mid-90s, when the Back to Sleep campaign, because we'll hear that like, well, I didn't need a helmet. Why didn't I need a helmet? Or no one I know needed a helmet. Well, you weren't sleeping. We weren't sleeping on our backs. That was the mid-90s when babies started doing that. So if you have a good sleeper, a baby with a bigger head circumference, multiples, often we'll see torticollis in multiples because of how they're kind of cramped in there. Preemies, who they come out and their skull's so soft, it gets that flat spot really quick. That Back to Sleep campaign was really kind of the big thing. And then I also think there really is just a social awareness. Why do more kids have braces these days? Is it because kids' teeth are more crooked, or because we're more willing to treat it? So I think it's something that may have always been there, but social media is there. I think there's just we're more educated moms and more like highly aware, I think, where it's like, well, if there's something I can do to treat that, why wouldn't I do it?
Mm-hmm. So sleeping is definitely one thing, but what about like baby swings or bouncers or like these other things that parents are oftentimes needing to like kind of put their kids in when they need to put them down. Does that affect head shape long term?
So it can, but I think that's one of like those kind of fear-mongering myths. And it's like, oh, I should never put which ones are good, which ones are bad. Well, it's more of a time thing, right? So if they're in it all the time, yeah, they're probably going to start to get some flatness. But if you're using it here and there to get a break because you need to cook or you need to clean, like that's totally fine. Also, if you start to notice a flat spot, well, then maybe try to reevaluate when they're in it and what are some times you can consciously have them up off the back of their head. So grocery store, right? We'll often see the car seat right inside the cart. Well, maybe that's the time you can wear them on you instead. Or at the park, if you have a bigger sibling, baby's in the car seat. We'll oftentimes kind of walk through with families. They'll be like, oh, they're never in their car seat. We'll be like, okay, well, like, what about when you go to church? Are they in? Oh yeah, we'll keep them in the car seat. Okay. What about at the grocery store? Okay. What about if you go for a walk? Oh yeah, they're in the car seat when you're on a walk. And then, okay, to and from work or, they just are. And that's not to blame. It's just to be aware of like, these days we have busier lives. We're moving about. We're bringing, older siblings here and there. Babies are in their car seats quite a bit. One that I would say like kind of drives me nuts is the car seat that turns right into a stroller. So like you never even have to take your baby out for like even coming into our appointments. It's like those legs pop out. Like try to be a little bit aware of that and just, keep when you can. And it's not always, it's not like, and you can never use this bouncer or this swing, but just being aware of it, I think can be really helpful and kind of doing an inventory of like, oh yeah, they are in it this much or whatnot.
So you said if you start noticing a flat spot starting to develop, kind of change your habits a little bit or just be aware of it.
Yeah.
But will a flat spot like go back to a good head shape on its own? And at what point do they need a helmet?
Yeah, great question. So kind of it depends. So it depends on age. Babies that are younger, their heads are growing at a more rapid pace. So if you can notice it really early on and change your habits, you might be able to get that natural rounding, that natural growth and correction. When we start to get a little bit older and babies have more head and neck control, if you have a flat spot on one side, even if you're like, oh, I'm going to move, manually repositioning is something we talk about, like, oh, I'm going to move their head physically to the other direction. Well, they're just going to turn right back in that other direction. So we have parents who are like, we're waking up every hour in the night. And, to try and reposition them, it's like, you can do that, but also like you need to stay sane too. So in that case, like maybe a helmet would be a good option because you don't have to worry about it then. Natural growth and correction will happen in every child. So what we tell families is, where are we starting and what is our goal point? And do we feel like we're going to get there through natural growth and correction? We use some measurements to give us a really objective understanding of the severity. And anything above moderate is when we recommend a helmet, or we say a helmet's an appropriate treatment option. Anything under that is that natural growth and correction will get them closer to that goal point. What a helmet might do is just give them that boost so that when they get out of the helmet, they may still have a little bit of flatness. We're usually not ending with this perfectly round head, but they're to a point where that natural growth and correction from now until, 5-10 years of age is going to get that improvement there.
How long do like the skull bones are they malleable?
Yep. So by age 2, the head is about 80 to 90% of its overall adult size. And then by at age 5, it's about 90%. So the skull is the cranial bone. So that's all of the stuff that's kind of underneath the helmet. Something that we see with more severe plagiocephalies is facial involvement. So you'll start to see eyes shifted, ears shifted, jaw shifted. The facial bones are going to continue to grow well into your teens. And so those you'll see that evening out kind of continued, but the cranium is really almost its adult size at age 5.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that is really interesting. And just especially how you were talking about the facial bones, like how those continue to shift and change. But so you're kind of working within a pretty short time period here.
Yes, that's the hardest part.
What do you feel like pediatricians' messages are to families? Because they're obviously seeing their pediatrician on a regular basis when their babies are little. Coming to you as a specialist, I'm assuming it's usually a referral from a pediatrician, or how do you feel like pediatricians are doing with referring to you in these types of
Or
situations.
their attitudes towards this
Or knowledge.
treatment. Yeah.
So most pediatricians have a little bit more of a wait and see approach unless they've had kind of a direct experience where they've seen that baby really see that, get a baby who had a helmet. Maybe it was their own baby, maybe it was a relative. But usually they have a little bit more of a wait and see perspective. And while I understand and appreciate that, my perspective is we see kiddos who, when they get in a helmet under 6 months, so at like 4-ish months, they're wearing the helmet for 6-8 weeks.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh.
So we're usually getting them past 6 months. So they've met the milestones of rolling and sitting and crawling. So they've naturally removed one of those risk factors of just the being on the back of their head. Whereas pediatricians offer like, well, let's wait until after 6 months and see if it's rounded out. That has merit in its thought process. However, if we don't get into a helmet until 7 months, 8 months, they're wearing the helmet for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And so that's where it really comes back to the experience. Those younger kiddos, families are ecstatic at like, oh my gosh, I wore it for that short amount of time and it's improved. Whereas when we get those older kiddos, it's a much longer time frame. We still can get nice correction, but it takes a lot longer. And so we really like that early intervention piece because we feel like families do much better with that. Locally, I think we've been doing this for 4 years, and I think pediatricians have been pretty responsive, ones that we've worked with. There's some that they really believe in that wait and see. And I think they're protecting their patients, right? Helmets have a cost to them. They have a commitment to them. And so I think they don't want a family to get pressured into a helmet if they feel like they don't necessarily need one. And that has been some of the reputation with other companies is like, oh, if you go there, you're leaving with a helmet. And we probably 60 to 70% of our patients get helmets and 30 to 40% don't. Mm-hmm. And that might be because they just don't feel like it's a good fit for their family because we don't recommend one. Or maybe they go somewhere else because of insurance obligations, things like that. But we're not fitting every baby that comes in with a helmet. And we take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah. Do you offer, like, if a family is wondering if their baby's had flat spot, or if they're just worried, or they're listening to this and they're intrigued and they just want to ask questions, what's the first step with a family contacting you? Do you offer like a conversation over the phone? Do you offer a free consult? How does that work?
So we, I'd say the best way is go to our website and schedule a consult. Our consults are always free. They're about 45 minutes. We're taking measurements, pictures. We're taking a 3D scan that really gives us a good idea of the head shape, and then we can make a proper recommendation from there. We do offer discovery calls. Like absolutely, you can call. We'll talk it over. You can schedule that, or just call the office. But it's hard for us to we can educate you on the process, but we can't necessarily speak to the specific child if we don't have those measurements and images in that.
For sure. And that totally makes sense.
And I think that is hugely valuable to families. The families, I think they probably feel, the families who don't go forward with the helmet and just get that like peace of mind.
Yeah.
Probably find even more value than the families that do. They're like a weight lifted off of their chest.
Yeah. I feel like even a free 45-minute you're analyzing them like thoroughly. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. That's great that you offer that, which is also why it's like, why wait and see? Why not just come and ask?
Yeah, why not just ask and get the options and find out? And
we get a pull from almost 2 hours away. So another recommendation I would say is go to our website. Our website is full of information. There's how can I evaluate my baby's head shape at home? And it kind of walks you through what to look for in facial features and what types of pictures to take so you can kind of recognize that. So our website has tons of information. My colleague, Callie Huft, has done a ton of work on the educational pieces, and they're great.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So what is your website if families want to go there?
www.babybearclinic.com.
Mm-hmm. And you used to be Baby Bear Cranial Clinic.
Yeah.
So if people have seen that, you are making a slight shift because you're going to be having more offerings. So
correct.
We're going to be covering a couple of those in their own episodes, but why don't you just walk us through some of the new offerings that you're going to have at your clinic?
Yeah. So we saw the experience that we were having with these families with cranial helmets. And there are some kiddos who need more interventions more than just a helmet because they may have, a weakness, a muscle weakness or whatnot. And it kind of was like, well, maybe we can continue to help them as they get older and give them that really good, that really kind of holistic approach where we're not just treating the ailment, but really treating the whole person. And so we've expanded into all pediatric orthotics so that is primarily going to be lower limb bracing, so leg bracing, and then scoliosis bracing is another one that we see. So usually that's going to be a little bit older kiddo, oftentimes like adolescent age, where they have a curve in their spine and might need a brace to try and prevent that from getting worse.
Perfect. Well, we'll talk deeper on scoliosis and lower leg bracing in their own episodes. But in the next episode after this one, we're going to be diving into cranial helmets in more detail. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, what about, does it cover it by insurance? How long is the process? I know you kind of started in on that, but we're going to really dive into what that journey looks like. Does it hurt the baby? All these questions that I'm sure you're getting all the time.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us for this episode, and we will be back shortly with the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.